Oh, hello, hello, hello. My name is Donna, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, then welcome. If you didn't already know, I'm a full-time drafter and a part-time adjunct instructor at a local college teaching drafting. I created this channel to be able to post short educational videos to help you in your drafting journey. Most drafting classes are online these days, and thanks to COVID, you can't really get the hands-on or face-to-face interaction like you once could. At least this way, you can visually see what's going on and get a better grasp at understanding versus, what you can get from a book. So, without further ado, let's get started. And in today's video, we are going to model this infamous transfer fork. So what I have right here is the PDF of the assignment from our book, which can be found in Chapter 4, Exercises of the Parametric Modeling with SolidWorks of 2025. This is Exercise 4. All right, now this is all the information that we are given. It's in isometric view, gives you all the dimension it's going to give you, and then at the top, it lets you know that it's cast iron, and then it gives you a question mark for mass and volume. So that's something for you to figure out. Now, at the very beginning of the exercises, it does say dimensions are in inches, and that applies to all the exercises. So right off the bat, we know it's going to be an imperial template. If you're in my class, obviously you're going to use our specialty templates for imperial. If you're not in my class, then you would just start a new part and change your units to inches. All right. So before we start modeling this, we really need to look at it and try to figure out like how are we going to approach this, right? So like if you were to let's just say this is a 3D block and you're holding it in your hand, what would you consider the front, the right side, the top? Like that's going to help you better understand how you want to go about modeling it, right? So, like in my mind, this is the front. This would be like the right side, the other side would be the left. And if I were to look down on it, so like top view, this would be the top, this would be the bottom. So if I think this is the front, I'm like, okay, well, how do I want to go about sketching that? Well, we have this shape right here, consistent on the other side as well, right? And then if you look right here, we have a 1 1/4 dimension to the center of this hole right here. We have a 1 1/4 dimension here, 1 1/4 here. So I would assume the other side is the same. I feel like if it was different, it would have gave us a different dimension. Sometimes it'll say typical. That means yes, all sides are the same. But for this, for whatever reason, it gave us three of them. Okay, so we've got this shape and at least until here, 1 1/4 consistent. Now, these ends are different. One's an arch, one's just flat. So, and if you look at this center line or the center mark right here, it is consistent with the edge that comes at 1 1/4. So that tells me that hole sits at 1 1/4 from the edge right here. So I think what I'm going to do, all right, is I actually have a drawing pad, which I am not prepared. So 2 seconds. I'm going to plug it up so I can draw on here and kind of show you what I'm going to do. All right. So I think on my front plane, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, well, it's not perfect, but you get what I'm trying to say. I'm going to draw this right here, just this. All right, now that is consistent across the board. Now we have this cutout here, right? But I'll be able to cut that out later. Same with right here. I'll be able to cut that out after the fact. But consistently, this shape goes across it. So that I think will be my front sketch. Okay. But how am I going to go about making, let me go ahead and delete this. How am I going to go about making, you know, these arches, this cutout, this part? How are we going to do that? So if I'm believing this is the right side of the part, I could sketch on the right plane and make this cutout right here, this cutout right here, and then I could possibly go ahead and make this right here. And I wouldn't have to do anything on this side because I would have already had that made. This is the part we're cutting out right here. And then, of course, well, it looks kind of sideways, but it'll be a cutout right here. Okay, so how are we going to do that, right? So let's go ahead and jump over into SolidWorks. We're going to figure that out. All right, so we got SolidWorks open. We've already decided what template we want to use. So we're going to go to File, New, and of course, if you're in my class, you're going to choose our Imperial template. If you're not, like I said, just go to Novice, choose your part, change your units. Okay, if you don't know how to do that, I've posted some videos on that. You can go back and see those if you need to. All right, so I don't know why it always starts in a sketch. I need to figure out how to fix that. All right, so back to our PDF. Okay, remember, I wanted to make that sketch on the front plane, right? So I've got a physical book, so I'm not going to keep referring back to the PDF just so it's not a bunch of back and forth, but I've got a physical book I can look at. You, on the other hand, might have to go back and forth. Now, you can just take a snippet of that exercise, or you can just pull up VitalSource and look at your book online. Either one is fine. I like taking a snippet and printing a PDF so that way you can mark on it. Okay. So once you know you for sure have that dimension in and you have double checked it, you can highlight it so that way you don't miss anything. But we'll go over that later once we get a little further in and we start modeling it. Okay. So, front plane, we're going to start a sketch. Okay, you can just go right here, or of course, sketch tab, start a sketch. I've already had the front plane highlighted, so it automatically puts it on there. All right, so now remember how we thought about sketching it. Now, keep in mind your planes. Now, you haven't really had to think about this before, but you got your top plane, your right plane, and your origin is dead smack in the middle of it, right? So if I do a normal to the front plane, you will see the right plane sits on the origin and so does the top. So the origin is the dead smack middle, right? So if I go back to here, where do I want my origin to be? When I model this, where do I want the middle to be? And I think that I want my origin, well, I'll probably put it in the middle for sure. But if this is the front plane, I want my top plane to sit right on the bottom, and I want my right plane to be right in the middle. And why is that? Well, this side and this side are symmetric, they're equal. Okay. So I want to make sure that they stay symmetric. And plus, when I go to make other portions of it or cut portions of it, like when I go to make this part right here, I can mirror it across this right plane onto the other side. Why? Because I would have created the plane in the middle. Now, if that plane is sitting off to the side, it's not going to put it where I want it, right? So that is how I'm going to go about doing it. I'm going to make sure my top plane is here, my right plane is here, and I'm sketching on the front plane. Okay. So how am I going to do that? Let's go back and show you. All right. On the front plane. Now, if you don't know where your planes are at, just by memory, you can right click on it and show it. Okay. So we'll just show them for visual purposes for now. Okay. Gets a little confusing sometimes, but you can always go back and hide them. Okay. So let's go ahead and go to our line command. All right, let's see. We're going to rough sketch this and just try to figure it out. So you see how when I get to the plane, it highlights, That lets me know that wherever I'm about to drop my first point is on that plane, and that's what I want. So I'm just going to go up, make sure it's straight. And I don't know if this point right here is straight across from where that cutout is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down just a little bit, just for the time being. But I do know that this is going to be straight across. But we can give it a mate. I don't want to go all the way down. So I'm just going to come back. I'm going to make sure that plane is highlighted. And then I'm just going to give it a line. Now, I didn't put that over here. So I just hit escape to exit out so I can hit it again. Now, we have the arch in the middle, right? And that arch, it says the center line is 0.75 from the bottom. And then the arch itself is a radius of 1. So you can do a circle. I'm trying to think about how I would go about doing this if I had never drafted before. But I for sure know that I want the center of my circle to be on that plane. That is the middle of my part. So for sure, the middle of that circle is going to be there. Okay, so it gave it the coincident mate, so I know it's on there. I can't drag it side to side, so I know 100% sure. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a dimension. Now it's in diameter, all right, but the dimension it gave me was a radius. So if you right click on that, display as radius, and then I can double click it and change it to 1.0. All right, now you see that's quite large. I was actually talking to a buddy of mine today, and one of the first things he reminded me of that I should mention, so thank you, Matt, was when you do a rough sketch, once you start putting dimensions in, especially like how that one did, and it'll start blowing up and throwing things out of proportion. One of the things you probably want to do first is throw an overall dimension in there. And what that does is that's like your biggest dimension, right? So everything else shouldn't be out of whack or proportion unless you gave it the wrong dimension. So let's see if it gives us a dimension from the bottom to here, which they do. So from the bottom to here, it's 3.5. So nothing's going to go higher than that. So no matter what, not going to be out of proportion. So I want this line right here, this line right here to be horizontal from each other or collinear. Either one, we'll do collinear. That just means they're on the same path. No matter where I move it, they're going to stay side by side. Okay. Now, notice I haven't connected them yet. I haven't done that yet. Uh, we're just going to leave that there for now. These planes are actually kind of messing me up, but I'm keeping them there for y'all. Okay. Now, what other dimensions do we have? All right. We know that this leg, I guess you can call it, has a dimension of 1.5. All right. Now, I obviously want this one to be equal. I want them to be the same. I also want this line and this line to be the same. Now, what I did, which I didn't explain that, when I clicked on this line, I held Control and clicked on this other line, and it automatically pulls this up for me. And then I hit equal. Now, what you could do is you could hit Add Relation, select what it is you want to give a relation to, and then your options would come up. But I just do the shortcut holding Control. It makes it a little bit easier for me because I always have a hand on the keyboard. All right, so our width right here from here to here is actually 3.5. Oh, see, notice that kind of threw it out of whack. we could have actually sketched this a whole lot differently, but I didn't want to make it, I feel like it's a little bit different. I'm pretty sure you would know under the sketch tools, I probably would have used a dynamic mirror. Basically, what that does is it sketches on one side and automatically mirrors what you do on the other side. But I felt like that was a little too advanced. Just to kind of give you an example, which I'll delete it, is sketch tools, dynamic mirror. All right, it says please select a sketch line or linear model edge to mirror about. So let's just say whatever you do on this side, you want to do on that side. So I want to select this plane, right? And then so that way, whatever I mirror or whatever I draw, you see, I don't know. Well, I did not mean to rotate it. Notice this line showed up. Oh, and then that one showed up. Whatever it does, it's automatically mirrored. So we're going to undo that. I felt like that was a little too far advanced, but that is an option, right? So I was trying to think of an approach that somebody would take that's a beginner that wouldn't have known about that or didn't know how to use it correctly. So we're just going to keep going, okay? For the time being, when I gave it that dimension, it kind of threw it a little bit out of whack. So you see how it is? That's where that dynamic mirror tool comes in. So I for sure want the middle of this line, so that midpoint, I want it to be coincident with the right plane. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that there. I'm throwing in some mates to kind of get it where I want it to be, right? So this one and this one, we definitely want to be equal. You see how it threw it in there? Um, I gave these equal. So it's getting a little wonky on me. What other dimensions do we have? We have this one right here. We have 1.25. Well, I definitely want this other side to be equal. Now it's starting to look a little bit better, right? Um, sorry, I'm trying to like double check everything too. So we've got our center of our arch. We said it's 0.75 from the bottom. So that's going to bring it down a little bit. Now notice it turned black, right? Pretty cool. That means it can't move. I've mentioned that a couple times in some of my videos. If it's blue, it moves. That means you can click it and drag it somewhere, or it can somehow move. Like in this case, this is how this is working. So I'll give it dimension to keep it still here in just a minute. So I have these two lines, which let me hide the top sketch so you can see it a little bit better. But I have these two lines right here, right? Now, I definitely want them to be the same for sure. Now, if you notice, according to our PAF, there is no dimension for those. And you're like, oh, I don't know what they're supposed to be. Well, that is because you're going to draw a line and you're going to just go straight down. And you're going to connect the end of this line to that, right? And notice it turned black. Now we are about to trim that up. So I just went to the end, the corner, well, the quadrant of this circle and went straight down. Now I am going to trim it because we don't obviously need a solid circle. So now it's starting to come together a little bit more, right? All right. What else we got? We've got some dimensions. Okay, so on the opposite end of the PDF, so I've pretty much input, let me delete these. I've input all of these dimensions right here. Actually, it did give you a dimension, 0.75. So I lied. You know what? Let's double check that. Now it's black, so to be reference, but it is 0.75. So we're in business. Okay. So I've put all these in. So, but I still need that dimension for right here to kind of figure out how wide these are. So we've got these right here. We've got 1.75, we got 0.75. This one will come later. We've already used this one. So we're going to do these two. So from the edge of this one to here is 1.75, and in the middle is 0.75. So let's put those in right now. From here to here, 1.75. And in the middle, on the in between, we got 0.75. All right. So what do we got left? Well, we got that one blue line right there. What does that mean? It can move. It can go up and down. So how deep does that go? Well, so here's where you really got to start thinking about how you're going about modeling this, right? So the way I made this was this portion up here comes to the center of that hole. So let me go back to the PDF to show you what I'm talking about. So it's 1 1/4 to the center of that hole and 1 1/4 to the top of this ledge. So this right here, this will be in the center, right? Sorry, I'm like trying to process thinking at the same time. It's been a while since I've modeled this. So if you look, this dimension actually goes to this one right here. Now, if it went to here, that line right here wouldn't be here. So it goes to the middle. So it's going to be 1 1/4 from the edge of this to the center of that hole. So this is where paying attention to a drawing really does help. Now, we already know this line is 1 1/4. We could make this line equal to this line, or you could just slap a dimension on it. It only makes sense just to make it equal. Now it turned black. What does that mean? It can't move. I'll go ahead and hide that plane. All right, so we got the sketch done, the initial sketch. Well, now we need to make it 3D. So we're going to exit that sketch. We're going to go to the Features tab, and we're going to extrude it. So this is where something else important comes in play. All right, now the overall width of the part is 5.0. Okay. Now, remember what I said about the planes. Where do I want the middle of that part to land after I extrude it? Now, if I keep it at blind, blind goes one direction. I sketched on the front plane. So this sketch is the front plane. And if I make it go in another direction one way, well, my right plane still stays in the middle, right? So let me do like a front plane or front view. My right plane is dead smack in the middle. My top plane is here, but where's it? Why does that look funny? I'm looking at it different. All right, front plane. Yeah, it's back there. I want the front plane to kind of be in the middle. I want my plane to be in the middle, so it's easier to model it. Now, everything else is in the middle, so I want my front plane to be in the middle. How am I going to do that? I'm going to change this to mid plane. Now, what did that do? That kind of put my sketch in the middle, which means my front plane's in the middle. So that's how we were going to do that. So now we got our basic. We're missing some few stuff, right? So what do we got? If we go to our right plane, do a normal to, what do we got to do? We've got to make some arches. We got to make some cutouts. Got quite a few things to do. So which one are we going to do first? Sorry, that's my phone going off. Are we going to make this cutout first? Are we going to make this cutout first? I mean, I don't think you want to make the arches first. You could, so you know where your cutout's going to be, but you don't necessarily have to make the arch first. Like these are all the things you need to start thinking about when you're modeling it. How are you going to go about doing it? What makes more sense, right? So if I cut this out, it's not really going to affect anything up here. So we could go ahead and do that part, okay? So where does that cutout stop? Well, we know it's all the way at the bottom. Well, this lip was at the bottom of 1 1/4, right? So now this is where you got to do a little bit of math, okay? Now we created our sketch to right here, the 3 1/2. Now this line right here, where your cut ends, is 1 1/4. So let's open up the calculator. What is 3 1/2 minus 1 1/4? You got 2 1/4. So that means from here down is 2 1/4. Okay. So that gives you like a baseline of how tall that is. So let's keep that in mind. We're looking at the right plane. Now we're going to go ahead and sketch on the right plane. And I'll basically just make a rectangle. Make sure it's just a regular 2 point. So the one I had it set to was a center point, so it would pull it like that. I don't want that. So we're gonna do the 2 point where it does well, and I still chose it wrong. It must be my old lady bedtime. All right, so does it give us a dimension for how wide our legs are? It does. It says 0.75. So I could go ahead and dimension from this edge to the edge of my rectangle, 0.75. So that way I know, oh, and I still pressed it wrong. I know it's not going to cut off into my legs. And then you could do the same thing because the other leg is just as wide, 0.75. This also kind of, it doesn't make you have to figure out how wide your rectangle is. You just know what it's not supposed to be cutting, right? But we did figure out 2 1/4 for the height. I'm going to say, 2.25. So it goes right up to that edge. Now, notice it's in the middle, but I want it to go all the way across. So I'm going to exit the sketch, go to features, and I'm going to extrude cut. And it's the same thing like the way I created the part. Instead of going both ways, I'm going to go to midplane. So it goes through both sides. And after I hit OK or the green check mark, it cuts it out. So now it's starting to take shape. Okay. Now, there is another cutout up top. Do this one or two ways, whatever's easier for you. Now, it also depends on how you want to manipulate this in the long run. What makes more sense? You could edit this sketch and you could go ahead and add that top cut, or you could create it as a whole nother feature. You're going to do the same thing you did it this way. You could make another sketch on the right plane and make this cut a whole separate feature. Whichever one you're comfortable with, no way is the wrong way, as long as the outcome is the same. You know, sometimes, or what's that old saying? There's 10 ways to skin a cat. And well, what do you end up with? You end up with a skinned cat, no matter which way you go about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and add it. Ugh, if I never hit the right one, I'm just going to go ahead and add it to this one. Now, the width is a little bit different on the top. Okay. So if this is the front, this is the back. Let me go back and do a normal T on the right plane. This width for the flat side is 1. So see, it's a little bit different. All right, now on the other side, we have our arches. Now, the arch is a radius of 50, but is radius half of diameter. All right, if you didn't already know, if you draw a circle, now this is just in case you never did drafting before, I can't expect you to be able to read a tape measure and know all your decimals of every fraction if you've never looked at a tape measure. So I'm just going to assume you've never drafted. Just give that circle a diameter of 1, which is radius of 50, because if I change it, it's going to say radius of 50. Now, if you drew a line from the edge of that to the edge of that, and you measured it, what do you have? You have a 1-inch line. So technically, this distance is also 1 inch. I didn't expect you to know that. Now, you could have just drew it off into the side to figure it out. What you could have did was you could have took a circle, went ahead and drew it at the size you needed, or just draw a circle. Make sure it's coincident to the edge because you know your arch is going to go this way. Give it your dimension, which it would be a 1-inch diameter. Like I said, you can display it as radius if it helps you out. And then what you could do is you could just move it to figure out where it's supposed to be. You could do that. Either way, you're still going to have to delete the circle. Yes, I want to delete it. And then you could just give it a dimension. But we already know it's 1 now because I did that sketch to show you. Now, how deep is this? Okay, there is a dimension because remember, we already have our overall total height of this lip already created. So we're just creating this little cutout right here. And it says that it is 0.5. All right, now because I've already created the cutout and I added a sketch, when I exit it, it might not cut it out automatically, but it did. All right, so if it did not, you're going to edit the feature, the cut feature. All right, so you see how it has both boxes selected? Let's just say yours didn't have it. Oh my God, why is it not deselecting it? Let's just say you drew that box. And now it's not wanting to do it. Okay, we'll delete this one. Say you drew that box and it still didn't cut it out. And so you go to edit it and it looks like this. You'll come down here to selected contours and then you'll go ahead and just select inside that box and get it to add it. That's just in case yours didn't add it that way. So now all we got left on the modeling portion is we have this arch. Okay. Now this is the reason why I wanted, let me do a front plane for you. This is the reason why I wanted the right plane to be a part of this. Okay. I am going to sketch on this face right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw it. Now I want the midpoint of this edge right here, and I'm going to drag it all the way to the very edge, which we already know is correct because we already kind of sketched it in our last one, right? Now it's black because it has the relations. It doesn't need the dimension because the midpoint is the midpoint of the edge, and the edge of that circle is right on the edge. Okay. Now you can go ahead and extrude this. We want it blind, so it goes one direction. I want it to go the other way. I don't want it to go all the way through because I don't want to have to cut it again. I don't want to do all that. So we already know that this right here, or actually, if you don't already know, this edge right here Where's my dimension? Point 0.5. So you could, when you go to extrude it, you could just do blind and point 0.5. Sorry, I exit out of it. Go reverse, point 0.5, whatever, right? Or let's just say, let me change it so it goes out further so you can see. Or instead of blind point 0.5, you could just go to, where is it? You could do up to surface and then select the face, right? Up to vertex and hit the point. Does the same thing. Let's see. We're just going to do up surface. That tells me that from this side to this side, that arch is going to be created. I just wanted to show you a couple different options. You could, I mean, you had three right there, right? Blind, up surface, up to vertex, whichever one you wanted to choose. All right, so we got the arch on one side, but I also need the hole. So I'm going to create another sketch. Now, you could use the hole command or the hole wizard, but I'm just going to draw a circle. So I'm going to highlight the edge of that for the center to pop up. I'm going to draw another circle, and then I'm going to dimension it. Now, when I did that, let me go back. When I highlighted it for the center to pop up and I started my circle there, what it did is it gave it an automatic relation of coincidence. So the center of my next circle will be the center of this circle. So that's why I did that. I should have explained that. So that's my fault. All right. So that is a diameter 0.5. So I'm already in diameter. Give it a 0.5. And then features, we're going to cut that out. All right. Now, same scenario. You could do blind, point 0.5. You could do uh, up to surface, just like I did the other one with that, which I'm going to do. And then, all right, so we got one side. Now, you could go to the other side, create a sketch, do the whole thing all over again. Either side, you could create the sketch, didn't matter. Or what we could do is we could mirror it. So there's a button right here, mirror. Now, I want to mirror across the right plane. Now, what am I going to mirror? Well, I want to mirror a feature, which is this. Oh, if it clicks on it, and the cut. All right. And then we're going to hit OK. And that is not what it was supposed to do. All right. Why did it do that? Right plane, cut, boss, propagate, partial view. Why did it do that? Wasn't supposed to do that. So you know what? I actually wonder if it's because the way I extruded it. So this one right here, let me change that to blind and point 0.5, the first option. That's what it was. Now you see the decision I made from one carried over later down the road and it made it connect. And I didn't want that. So when I changed the way I extruded it, it fixed it the way I wanted. So that's something else to think about. I sure didn't think about it, and I should have known better. So the last thing we need to do is apply material, which is says it's cast iron. So I have actually posted a whole separate video about applying material. So if you want a little bit more information on that, I highly suggest, checking that video out. So it's pretty simple though. You're just going to right click on material, you're going to edit the material, and you're going to figure out which one you want. So you've got a couple different ones. If you don't know which one is one, you've got your SolidWorks material, if you don't know which one you're looking for, just go down the line and look and see. We're looking for carbon steel. There is plain carbon steel. There's that, but that's not it. So what is carbon steel, right? You're just going to look through. Or I didn't say carbon steel. I meant to say cast iron. Wow, I must be tired. So this is sandblasted iron. I don't want that. So we're just going to choose gray cast iron and hit apply. And then I'm going to close. Notice it changed colors, right? So if you're in my class, what I like to do is I like to usually give you the volume to double check yourself. So that is what we're about to do. Now, we just modeled this together, right? We have no idea if it's correct or not. I have no idea if it's correct or not. I haven't double checked myself. You always want to do a self check. You want to go through and you want to make sure that all your dimensions are correct. You captured everything correctly. And then now, because on the job, they're not going to give you a volume, density, and mass. Like they just expect you to make it right. You're not going to have a way to double check yourself. So that's where your self check comes in. And that's also what I was talking about was creating the PDF for yourself. So that way, let me delete this. So when you go through and say you look at your front sketch, you're going to highlight every single dimension to make sure you captured those dimensions in your sketches. And if for some reason you missed one, you're going to fix it, right? So in class, this is the transfer fork. Give me just a second. Let it pop up. I gave you the volume of 11,168. So let's go ahead and check our volume. 11,168. Bam. Now the reason I gave you the mass and the density was because we applied a material. Okay. So the density was 0.260, 0.260, and the mass was 2.905. 2.905. So, bam, I know it's correct. All right. So we've got it modeled. We know that everything matches. Now, if you don't have that to go by, like I said, just go to your book, right? All you're going to do, you're going to go to, like, say, if this was an assignment, you're going to take a snippet of it, and then you're just going to print to PDF, just like we do in class, and you're going to highlight those dimensions that I gave you, or not I gave you, the book gave you, and you're going to make sure you have every single one of these in there. All right. Now, we did go over quite a bit of different mates in there that I gave it. I did it the hard way just to give you worst case scenario on my first sketch. I could have used the dynamic sketch tool and made it so much easier. But you know how many newbies are going to use that? Not many. They're going to do it the hard way. So I wanted to go about it the hard way to kind of show you how to get it to work. But see, I applied a bunch of mates that is probably like a foreign country to you right now, you know? Sorry, I had to cough. That's my fault. So now that we've got it completed, obviously you want to save it. If you're in my class, you already know we're not going to save it as transfer fork. We have a whole different naming convention. If you're not in my class, then you can save it however you would like. But that's it. We've got it done. And a lot of people have a lot of problems with this one. So thank you so much for joining me today and learning about how to model the transfer fork in SolidWorks. So as always, if you find this video helpful, let me know in the comments below. And if there's anything else you'd like to see a video on, just shoot me an email or let me know in the comments as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I post a new video. And here recently, it's quite a bit. So it really helps this channel out a lot. And thanks again and happy drafting.